Hey, friends. This is Martine Williams, and I am obsessed with all things mompreneur life and helping you to remix your priorities, your habits, your mindsets, and yes, even your relationships so that you can build a successful business without losing yourself in the process. I'm also obsessed with the color turquoise and lyrics of the 80s and 90s, but that's beside the point. Girlfriend, you don't have to hustle 24/7, 365 and continue to sacrifice your health, your relationships, and your sanity to be a successful mompreneur. As a small town girl living in a lonely world to a six-figure mompreneur, I am here to teach you how. There is a better way, and this podcast is your one-stop shop for all of the how-tos, the encouragement, the life hacks, the success tips, and of course, a little side of tough love. This is the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. So let's do this. Hey, friends. I want to be the first to tell you, well, I won't be the first probably, but happy Thanksgiving. If you're listening to this episode today, I hope that you have had an amazing time with family and friends and a full belly of all of your favorites. Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays because it's just a day to eat, a day to laugh, to be with family and friends. And there's no pressure, right? It's not like Christmas where you're pressured with all the gifts and did you get the right gift? And is that kid happy? And all of those things. It's just a day to be grateful and thankful. And I wanted to just let you know how thankful I am for you, the listeners who have supported me in this podcast, who send me messages, who share the episodes, who have left a review. And that would be like super generous of you if you took the time to leave a review for the show. If you haven't done that yet, that would seriously make my day. But I just am thankful. And I wouldn't be here today still producing episodes if it wasn't for you. And so I just want you to know how much I appreciate you. And if no one has told you that today, I am thankful for you. And today's episode is a Turquoise Talk guest, and her story inspired me. I literally just met her. And it's just really cool to be able to bring people to the show, mompreneurs to the show that you probably will never meet face to face. But you get to just be empowered and be encouraged by their stories of courage, their stories of not settling, their stories of keeping the main things, and also just sharing their messes right before the success. So Lyss Morton is a motivational speaker, coach, facilitator, and podcast host that I invited onto the show. She's a highly respected entrepreneur, mother of two, wife, and a goal-getter. Alyssa works with women and couples to empower them to become a better version of themselves in life and business. She's also the host of her own podcast, actually two, the Making Mommy Moves show, and she's the co-host of the Power Couple show. She is the owner of multiple successful businesses, five startup businesses, and runs two blogs on her personal brand and business websites. And y'all, she still has hair in her head. And she's super young. I'm just so encouraged by her journey. And I know you will be too. So, again, happy Thanksgiving. And if you're listening to this and it's not Thanksgiving, just know I'm still thankful for you. And I hope that this episode will speak to you and encourage you in your mompreneur life. All right, let's do this. Well, welcome back, friends, to the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. We are super excited to have a Turquoise Talk guest with us today, Lyss Morton. And Lyss, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and just kind of share about mompreneur life. It's really cool to hear different stories. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So for those that don't know you, and I'm just kind of getting to know you as well, tell us a little bit about you, your family, and how you decided to become a mompreneur.
Yeah. So I am based in the Jersey Shore, and I am a mom of two babies. We've got a 2-year-old and a just turned 1-year-old. And I am the owner of 5 different businesses.
Wow.
So I'm an Enneagram Type 3, which explains a lot. I am definitely an achiever, have been my entire life. And I'm coming to learn more about myself every day. But as a Type 3 and a serial entrepreneur, I've got a lot of different passions. So I started my business as a floral designer for weddings and events primarily. Okay. And I started my business with no experience. I was previously a medical biller for 10 years of my life, realized that that was a dead-end job. And I was like, I need to do something like creative and fun and work with my hands and know that I have the capability within myself to create the future that I want. And I knew that the dead-end job wasn't going to do it.
Right.
So I started my business and I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, maybe we'll grow flowers. Maybe we'll sell them at farmers markets. Maybe we'll do weddings. Maybe we'll do retail. But I was working out of my house and I was like, I don't want to do retail. I don't want people coming to my house.
Right.
So I was like, what's the best way that I can maximize my income, have the most fun, and make really cool things? And I was like, weddings. So I started advertising for it. I connected with a local photographer and I asked my friends to put on their wedding dresses so I could take pictures of them. And
awesome.
We posted them. And that's how my wedding business took off. It was in the middle of the pandemic, like post-pandemic.
Yeah.
So it was actually really great for me because all of the other events that were postponed from 2020 into 2021, all of the florists were too busy.
Right.
So
yeah.
all of the new people that got engaged came to me and I did 50 weddings in my first year of business.
Wow.
So
That's
it was crazy. Yeah. And it was a really big learning curve in the lesson of entrepreneurship and trying to manage it as a new mom and postpartum with my second baby. I had a wedding 2 days after my due date. She actually came 13 days early, but still in the peak of postpartum, like all of it, just trying to manage it all and grow it and make it something that was worthwhile.
Wow. So that's one business. So tell us about the other 4, if you don't mind, because I know that's what they're thinking. Like, that's just one. That's a big one. But share with us the other 4 that you have.
Yeah, that's the one that really got it started, and everything else really stemmed from that. So the next one, we preserve florals for people's weddings, sympathy arrangements. It kind of goes hand in hand, but we take inquiries from anywhere. Like we actually got one from like Mexico, like we got them from all over the place. And we encase them in resin, we press the designs, really create like one of a kind treasures and like pieces of art that they can hang in their home or use functionally like charcuterie boards or desks or furniture, or stuff like that.
Super cool.
So one of them.
For that? Do you have a link for that business that we can put in the show notes? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. The third one is really niche specific for the event industry. In being a freelance designer, when I was first trying to develop my skill set, I turned my listening ears on and I heard everybody complaining about cleaning up after their events. Nobody wanted to go back, especially in this ridiculously busy season where they were so short staffed. I was like, I told my husband, I'm like, I have an idea and you're going to hate it, but let's do this because there's nothing like it around here. The closest one I could find was in Colorado and we're in New Jersey. So I was like, we need to start this thing. And we did. And that took off. We connected. I made a list of all the local florists in my area. I went on like Wedding Wire and the Knot. And it was basically like a curated list for me. I did a spreadsheet and I sent them emails and I was like, hey, this is our new business. Let us know how we can help. And a lot of people replied back and they're like, oh my gosh, we need this. Please let me know what your rates are. Let's connect. And we ended up like creating relationships with a whole lot of different florists in the area. So that's another one.
Awesome. That's so cool.
And then I had this calling in my heart that I needed to write a book. So in talking with my friends, she was working like a publishing coach. Like she was working with publishers and started that career as like a freelance like writer and working with different companies. And she's like, we were having a discussion about it. And she's like, Alyssa, you need to create an audience. She's like, create your personal brand, start attracting people to your audience. So that's what I did. I started a podcast. I've got my YouTube channel. And this is like the 4th one, I guess you could call it. It's my personal brand, Lyss Morton. So that's going to be my book. That's my podcast, which is the Making Mommy Move show. And then my husband and I have another one. It's called the Power Couple Show. And like the YouTube and all of that stuff that goes with it. And that's the 4th one.
Amazing.
That one is primarily focused around helping inspire moms create the life that they want, because this is something that I'm really passionate about. That's something that I've done. And I wanted to show them that you don't have to be defined by the title mom, that you can do anything that you want.
Right. Love that.
And then the last one came as a result of creating the personal brand, because I was doing all this content creation and it's really overwhelming and stressful trying to do it for all of the different businesses that we have. So I brought on a team to help me do it. And I was like, how can I monetize the creation of my brand when it's not bringing money in yet? And I was like, use my team. So I created a production company called Mama Media, where we help other moms grow their businesses and tell their stories. So whether they wanted to be like an influencer or create their audience, their own personal brand, or if they have a small business, like whether it's Etsy or coaching or whatever, we help them get that into the world with YouTube editing, content creation, social media management, podcast editing, stuff like that.
Wow. I know. I mean, that's a lot. And you have like two littles. Like I'm thinking about when my children were that age, and to have, not only to have, but to start and create and grow 5 different businesses is remarkable. Thank you. You still have hair on your head. So
I know. And I just took a shower. So I actually have time to do that too.
Oh, that is absolutely amazing. And a couple of things about what you just shared. Number one is I love that you thought about where you were and where you want to be, and you were not happy with where you were, and you took a chance, right? And you took a big leap of faith and started your own business. And I know there's a lot of women that this is the time of year that they're kind of evaluating that part of their life. And they're like, gosh, I'm just in this dead-end job, or I know there's something else I can do. And one of the challenges that I hear them say is, I just don't know what I would be good at, right? Or I don't know what that thing is. And we make this huge, purpose is this big, crazy thing. And really, it's just as simple as what you've been doing, which is solving other people's problems. And solving your own problem. You were like, you know, this is a big job. So I'm going to build a team. Now you have a team that not only serves you, but serves other mompreneurs. And so I just really wanted to encourage a woman who's listening today that, if you're feeling that way, just take that next step. I mean, you didn't know you were going to have 5 different businesses, blossom from that one, leaving corporate and deciding that you just didn't love that and you wanted to do something else. So what a powerful story. And I do hope that you're sharing that every opportunity that you get, because there's a lot of good nuggets right there in just that little piece that you just shared with us already. So, but we do know there's a mess before the success, right? So share with them kind of what that looked like for you. What were the messy moments that, as you're building these 5 businesses and raising a family and being a wife and all of those things, what were some of the messes?
We're still in the mess. And that's what I preach on our podcast. It's we don't have it figured out, but come follow along and join the journey and learn from us while we're still learning. It's we don't have it all figured out, but in creation of these different things, we've had to overcome a lot of struggles in our relationship, because in the beginning, when I was growing my first business, Garden in the Pines, I was staying up late trying to rework my systems and develop my website and my brand and recreate email funnels and all these different things. And I would be up until 2:00 in the morning with a baby on my boob, and my husband missed me. Right. And ultimately we had to have that conversation that was Lyss, I really miss you. And I feel we're not even in a relationship anymore. And I didn't even know that he was feeling this way, because I was so engulfed in everything that I was creating. I was breastfeeding the baby, not sleeping, because we have a toddler too, and the newborn stage. The baby had RSV. So she was struggling, breathing. So I would just keep her on me all the time and trying to grow the business and hop on phone calls for sales meetings. And it was just a whirlwind always. So he was feeling really neglected, ultimately. And what ended up happening is it was you need to hop on board with this, because this is what I'm creating for our future. Right. It's it's not going to be forever. This is a temporary struggle. It's a temporary hustle. And I have the greater vision in mind, and you need to be on board with the vision, or it's not going to work, because this is who I'm becoming. I was listening to all the podcasts. I was listening to the audiobooks. I was reading ebooks, doing all of the self-development work. And he wasn't. He was just sitting on the sidelines. So it's you need to work on yourself too, if we're going to be in this together for the long haul. Right. And ultimately he turned on his listening ears and he started listening to the podcast that I was listening to. And he was oh my gosh, I get it now. Right. So then he started to feel he needed to do something. So he came on board with the Jersey Strike business, and that's really his baby, breaking down the events and stuff. And then ultimately, now last month he came full time in our businesses. And then we realized that we actually really need his income to be more steady. Right. So that's another mess, is that we thought we were prepared, and then he came full time and we were draining our savings, and we're this isn't going to work. You need to go back until we have the assets to provide for us, so that you can come full time and feel not stressed about like where we're at providing for the family, and that you're able to really work on your goals and I'm able to work on mine and we could flourish together.
Right. Right. That's such a good takeaway. Just to have those healthy conversations before you hit rock bottom, and to be completely honest with one another. And I love that you were able to share with him, like, this is the vision. Like, he caught the vision, and I think a lot of times we just say, well, this is where I'm going. I hope you're coming with me. But, you're a partnership in marriage. And so to be able to really kind of paint that vision, because a lot of times they don't see what we see and they're not listening to the things that we're listening to. So they just don't get it until we put them in that place of most potential to get the vision and to really invite them into it. I think that's a really key message too for mompreneurs who, maybe are struggling with their husband, is like, invite them into the process, ask, they have gifts and strengths that, that you don't have, that they can maybe bring to the table. And it just takes a simple invitation sometimes to get them on board. So love that. So what does a typical day look like for you? For someone who's managing or running 5 businesses, you have 2 littles. How are you doing it all? Because I know that's the question, like, how in the world, like, I have one business. I know moms are thinking, right, I have one business and maybe, one child, and she's got 5 businesses and 2 children. So what are some tips you can share as far as time management or how to run that day?
Yeah. So I can't live without daycare. That's just what we do in our house. And I struggle with the mom guilt, and I've worked to overcome that a lot, because I know that if they were with me 24/7, I wouldn't be happy and they wouldn't be happy. They'd be tired of me. They wouldn't be getting as much they're getting out of daycare, just developmentally, socially, all shapes and forms. Like, my daughter's like language like skyrocketed as soon as she started when she was 1. The baby, like, after we had her, it was a couple months after that. But a lot of the work I was doing at that time was on the computer. So I was able to just pull up my recliner. I have a desktop. So I was able to pull the desktop up to the recliner, and she just sat on my breast and I worked with one hand. And that's just how I did it for 4 months while the other one was at daycare. But typically my day looks like I get up in the morning. The girls come running into my room at 5:30 in the morning. We don't like that, but they do.
It's a season. It's a season. I will tell you that mine are 17 and 14 now, and they don't come running in the room at any time. Now I'm wishing they would run in the room,
Yeah. So we have a little bit of snuggle time, like in bed, or we go down and we sit on the couch, and my daughter says, "Cozy, cozy, mommy." We pull up a blanket and we just snuggle for a bit until she decides she wants to run and color, throw all the toys off her toy shelf. And then I bring them to school around 8. And then from 8 to 12, I block out my calendar. So I'm really intentional with the time that I'm using, so that all of my distractions are thrown away. I throw my phone across the room so I'm not distracted by it, or even like tempted to distract myself with it. And that's where I really focus on like the business growth. So whatever I need to work on, like, I carve in my book time there so that I'm able to really make progress on it and get it out into the world. I have a list that I create like the night before, and it's just the priority. So if I have an event coming up, I make sure that I order the flowers and I finish up my designs and whatever takes priority that day. And then from 12 to like 4 is usually when I do my meetings, because I find, like, for me, I'm most productive in the morning. First thing, my brain is fresh. I'm able to dedicate to it. And then from 12 to like 4, I'm a little burnt out of like the hard brain work of like sitting in front of the computer and really like trying to plan everything out. And that's when I do my Zooms, my podcast interviews, everything, my proposal meetings, if I have that. Sometimes those take place later at night, depending on the couple. If they work and they can't get on the phone until 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night, I'll make it work. But it's not the standard, it's the exception. It's like when they ask, and it's like, I'm sorry, like, your calendar, like, is kind of a problem. And then I'm like, okay, well, we can make that work. I get the girls from school usually around 5, and from 5 to 8 is like our intentional family time. So we do dinner, we do bath time, we do no phones, so that they get our dedicated attention and they feel like their cups are full, and I feel like mine is full, because I don't feel guilty about sitting on my phone. Because when I had them 24/7, I'd be on my phone, whatever it was, even if it was just like creating Instagram reels or TikToks or something for the business. My daughter doesn't see that. She just sees me on the phone, not paying attention to her. And she comes over, grabs my face and goes, "Mommy," like, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry. It looks like you're not important because I'm on my phone." So taking the time to have that quality time helps too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then usually from 8 to 11 is when I get more focus work in. I've had like that break. I filled up my cup by eating dinner and spending time with the kids and my husband. And usually at that time, I'm able to get more focus work in. But I give myself grace. So if I'm tired, I take the night off. If my husband is feeling like he really wants to snuggle and like have mommy and daddy time, then we do that. Like whatever it is, it's like I give myself grace. So usually it's like 2 or 3 nights a week that I feel motivated and fulfilled and energized to do that work at night. And then sometimes I'm like, I really need to just go to bed.
Right. And I think that's important, is to listen to your own body, and look at the season of life that you're in. For those that are listening, they're like, man, I don't have from, 8 to 5 or 4 to schedule all those things in, working during nap times. Maybe their kids aren't in daycare. And so I think the key message is calendar blocking, period, whatever that looks like for you, so that you can use that time intentionally. I love that you throw your phone across the room or have it somewhere where it's, not dinging at you every 5 minutes, because that just takes so much more time. At least for me, if I get distracted, it takes me on average, I think they say this is science, takes on average like 7 minutes to get back on track once you're distracted. And so you think about how many times your notifications are going off, or if your phone's right there. So I love that. But take this message of calendar blocking and really think about, okay, what are those most important things that need to get done? And you mentioned I'm more productive in the mornings, where I know some people, like, they're night owls, and they would definitely take that night shift. And that's when they work their business, is after everybody's going to bed, they've met all those other needs. So this is not a one size fits all. I've never said that. And I think you agree too. So I appreciate you sharing kind of what your day looks like. Cause I know that was a question they were asking, like, how does she do it all? Would you say you've ever experienced burnout? You mentioned mommy guilt, and I do want to talk about that a little bit, but if you've experienced burnout, what does that look like for you? I ask every guest this question because burnout to me is a epidemic that has just become accepted. This is just how life is. So how does it present for you emotionally, physically, mentally, and then how have you worked your way out of burnout?
Yeah, I was experiencing it really bad this year in September in particular, because that was peak wedding season. And I was trying to grow all of these things. Like, they're all startups, So
right. Yeah.
You think I only started my first business almost 2 years ago. So it's like everything's a startup still.
Right.
So in September, it was peak wedding season. We had weddings every single weekend, multiple days, multiple events in a day. And it was just trying to survive, like trying to stay on the content schedule that I had set for myself so that I was showing up for the audience that I created, and trying to just hold myself accountable across the board. And ultimately I had to come to like a decision, and it's like, you know what? These contracts are the priority. They paid me. They're expecting this of me. I promised this to them. I need to fulfill on them. So it's like anything else that isn't contracted like that, I need to give myself grace. So the podcast, it was 3 days a week. I cut it back to like 2 days a week. Same with like YouTube and all that stuff. And I was like, you know what? Like, the content creation isn't necessarily making me money right now, but my weddings are. So I need to be able to focus on them. September was a whirlwind. Like, I was stressing it all year. I was like, man, like, I'm not going to have any time. I'm not going to see my kids. I'm not going to do anything. And ultimately, blocking out my schedule was the key to trying to overcome that burnout, because to give you like a look at the day, we had 4 weddings in 1 week. 2 of them were in different states, about 3 hours away, back to back. And then we had our biggest event of the year at the end of the weekend. Leading up to it, I would be designing all day long, put the kids to bed, and then design until probably like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Get up at like 6, finish designing, and then go deliver, work all day, and then do that again like every day. Right. So that was how the whole month looked. Right. Wow. And then also trying to squeeze in everything else. So at one event, my husband and I were doing a breakdown for somebody else in their business, and we were designing for our wedding, and then we were recording a podcast at the same time in the back of our work van at like 10:30 at night, waiting for the strike to happen. And we're like, okay, we need to give ourselves some grace here, because this is just too much. So that's kind of like what my burnout looked like. Just overdrive. I didn't I don't want to say that I had a breakdown or anything at that point, but it was getting close. Yeah. And ultimately I ended up having a bit of a reprieve in October that really like reset it so that I could feel refocused for the next events and stuff. But trying to refocus and re-strategize the way that I had structured all of my stuff coming out, because that was
Right.
really what was overwhelming, was trying to create all the content in addition to fulfilling everything.
Yeah. I think our natural tendency, and you can say whether you agree or not, is to speed up
Mm-hmm.
when we're feeling that way. Like just work harder, work faster, instead of doing what you did, which was to slow down and actually reevaluate your schedule. Go back to your plan, go back to your schedule and say, okay, something has to be removed. Like our capacity is only so big as far as energy, and everybody's energy capacity is different, so you might be able to do a little bit more than your husband or people that work for you. So it's really important to manage your energy, and really kind of slow down. But our tendency is, well, I'll just go faster and harder. And that's what leads to burnout, is, not taking that time to stop and go back and look at your schedule. So thank you for sharing that with us. You did mention mommy guilt, and that's another question, because I know mompreneurs, it's a never ending struggle. I feel like we have some days where we're like, I'm killing it. And the next day you're like, I'm ruining my children's life. So
literally.
when you've experienced mom guilt, how do you help yourself in those situations when you're just, either it's self-imposed or someone is making you feel guilty for something?
Oh, I've had both.
Yeah.
But I go back to the vision and I remind myself that this is temporary, that my plan is to be done hustling like this within 5 years. By that time, my daughters will be 5 and 6 years old, and they will be old enough to actually remember like what we're doing. And in that time, we're going to be making memories. We're going to go on trips. We're going to take a year off and we're going to go travel. Like, I have a lot of these like visions in mind that we're going to make happen for them.
Right.
And at this stage, they're still so little, they're not going to remember this. I know that I will, but I know what I'm working toward, and for the financial freedom and for the time freedom to be able to make memories with them that they're actually going to remember and cherish forever.
Right.
So that's like what I bring myself back to. And whenever somebody is casting their own judgment on me, whether it's for creating a whole bunch of different things and feeling like it's like selfish to want to have all of this success in my life, I think about what they're doing, and it's probably working the same amount of time that I am, but they're working for another job or for somebody else's success instead of their own.
Right.
And that's like what brings it back to reality. And I'm like, you know what? This is what we're working toward. It's a lot of hours right now. I know it's a lot of hustle, but it's only temporary.
Right. Right. Yeah. One of my mantras is I can do anything for a short period of time. So when you are in that kind of crunch mode or in that season that you're in, I mean, it is hard. But I love that you said return to your vision, return to your why, because that is on the days you're like, I just don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like creating one more email, one more, piece of content, which is exhausting sometimes. You could return to why you're doing it in the first place. So I love that. Do you have a vision board, or do you have it up like somewhere where you're looking at it every single day? What your vision is?
We journal. So my husband and I journal together. Like, we both have the journals, and we actually made sure that we both like wrote down the vision for both of us. Like, we were in separate rooms and we were like, we need to make sure that we're working toward the same thing here. So you write down your vision, I'll write down mine, and we'll come together and make sure that we're on the same page or compromise whatever the vision is. And it was like verbatim, like the same thing, which was awesome, because then we were like, okay, we're good. Like, we're both working toward the same thing here. But reflecting on that every day and just making sure that we're working toward that vision. And it's like, whatever the priorities are for the day, we need to make sure that they're working toward that vision, because if it's not, then it's a distractant and we need to get it out of there, because it's not actually moving the needle for us.
Right. And would you say your vision or your journaling, is that what keeps you motivated? Is there something else that helps you stay motivated on those days you're like, I'd rather just not do this today? Because motivation is a big thing.
I think that comes back to my Enneagram 3. I'm an achiever.
You're an achiever. So it comes naturally to you. You're inner directed, self-motivated.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, you don't need that. How about your husband? Is he the same? Is he self-motivated, or does he?
No, he's very motivated by me and our kids. Okay. So that was like part of the problem with like him coming into the business full time. Like, he needed to have that external, I want to say like nagging, but if I were to do it, it would have destroyed our marriage. So it was like, he needs to feel comfortable before he can come in and like make it happen for himself.
Right. So. Right. And do y'all do like weekly date nights? What does it look like for you, since you're both, very busy in your businesses? How do y'all create that time for the two of you?
We try to have date nights, and usually what it looks like my dad lives with us, so he's able to watch the girls like usually after they go to bed. So it's not really any requirement of him to like actually like chase them, because he's usually just a body anyway. Like he's not, I wouldn't call him a babysitter.
Right.
And usually like we'll go out and we'll get ice cream, or we'll do something like just like small but quality.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's not that, then after the girls are in bed, usually we just have some time together, whether that's just talking on the couch or whatever it looks like.
Yeah. I think that's great. Keeping it simple. You know, I think when people think of date nights, or, I mean, I remember when our kids were literally was putting them to bed a little early and having dinner at home, you know, because we didn't necessarily have the income to go and spend out, you know, spend money on this lavish dinner. So I think keep it simple and what works for you. As long as you're carving out that time, it could be 10 minutes one day. It could be, you know, an hour or 2 hours the next day, but it's just creating those moments to connect. I think right now we're all starving for connection because of what we all just went through. So whether it's with your husband or your kids, you know, even though we have more ways to be connected, I feel like we're more disconnected, most of us, in our relationships, because that phone, you know, is in our face,
100%.
or our face are in screens. So we have to be intentional about that.
Yeah, like even when we were in the hustle mode of like doing all these events and stuff, if we were doing one together, we made that a date. So it was like, even though we were working, we were still doing it together. We were able to have fun doing it. So we tried to make whatever we were doing, even if it was for the business, reframe it to be like a date and quality time.
Love that. That's a great tip. So if you had a chance to talk to all the mompreneurs, like right now, as they're listening, what's the one thing, if she's trying to build that business and, you know, keeping all those roles, what's the one thing you would want her to know?
Don't compare your chapter 1 to anybody else's chapter 2, chapter 5, chapter 20. That's something I still struggle with to this day. And it's really hard to remind yourself, like, to compare yourself to yourself, because you're the only one that knows the growth that you've been through. So look back at the first day you started your business. Look back at the first day that you quit your job. What kind of personal growth have you had? What kind of, you know, external, like I want to say, like external growth have you had, that like the milestones? So whether it's even like 100 followers, whether it's your first $1,000, whatever the small milestones are, because those are all, you're growing. It's going to be a process. It's not going to be overnight. And comparing yourself to somebody else's chapter 20, it's like, for me as an event florist, I was looking at these people being published and booking out their calendar into 2024 and all these things. And it's like, okay, when I am in the business for 20 years, I will have the same thing. But right now, I'm still new. I'm still getting my name out there. And this is what it is. I'm doing great for where I'm at. Yeah. So just trying to refocus and just compare yourself to yourself and not anybody else.
Love that. That's a great message. So you mentioned listening to podcasts, and I tell people all the time, podcasts, to me, there's no excuse for not getting personal or professional development, because podcasts are free. And some of my best mentors I've never met. They're just through podcasts.
Same.
I would love to know, like, what are some of your favorites that you're listening to right now that you could recommend for people? I
love Chris and Lori Harder. They're my favorite, like, go-to podcasters. I also love Jenna Kutcher. Everybody loves Jenna Kutcher. Yeah. And same with Kayla Craft. Like, they're like my top that I always listen to all the time. And then I also like the Solopreneur Hour with Mike O'Neill. He's really funny. I will crack up like randomly, like laughing to his stuff. Yeah.
Those are awesome.
Those are, like, my top ones that I always like go back and re-listen to. And then there's like some others that like will come up on my feed, like Pat Flynn's and the big ones.
Awesome. Well, we'll include those in the show notes for y'all to look up. So managing and running all your business, I'm sure there's like a favorite resource that you use that like you could not do your business without. So what is that resource that you use? It could be an app or whatever.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
I have two.
Okay.
I really like Dubsado for my CRM. It's a client relationship management system for anybody that's new. It helps me stay organized and make sure that all my clients feel like they're my only client, because everything's automated in there so that they're getting all their emails, all their questionnaires. Everything is sent out automatically. I don't have to think twice about it because I know it's being done. They get the payment reminders. They sign contracts. Like, everything's done through there.
What's the name of it again?
Dubsado.
Dubsado. Okay.
Yeah, I have a referral code I can give you.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
And then I also have Asana that I use to manage all the projects. So with our editors and social media management and different businesses, we have different projects open in there so that we're able to stay on track of our deadlines, make sure that I get my content recorded by a certain day so that they have time to edit, and same with like our clients.
Awesome. Those are great. Okay. So last question is, what is something, because you pour out a lot. You pour a lot into your businesses and your family. What do you do just for you?
At this point, I feel like I really don't. I try to carve in some time for a massage like once a month or a facial. And I'm working to get back in the gym. That's something that I really need for my mindset and just the clarity. But I've had the struggle with the self-discipline for that lately.
Right. Okay. Well, here's my encouragement to you. Carve in, even if it's only 15 minutes, carve in something just for you. You need something to fill your tank. And I know you know that. And we all kind of go through those seasons where we kind of put some of those things on the back burner, or we start believing these lies that, well, we'll just get back to that one day. You're in a season with littles, but we can carve out. Maybe it's just you're listening to podcast time. Also, it can be considered, something that you do just for you. But go get that massage. Go schedule that massage as soon as we get out this podcast.
I will.
Take that step into the gym, or just put some tennis shoes on and go for a walk. Like, I think we overcomplicate exercise too. I'm actually was an exercise physiologist. That's what I actually went to college to do. So I worked in cardiac rehab for 7 years, and I used to always tell my patients, like, just start walking. Once you leave rehab and you're on your own, like, don't overcomplicate it. Just go for a walk. That's really going to be better than nothing at all. So there's my challenge to you. But thank you so much for being on here. This was super fun. What are you most excited about before we end in the season that you're in right now? Is there anything that you're offering or that you want to talk about in your businesses? We can put links to everything in the show notes, obviously, but what are you most excited about right now as a mompreneur?
I'm excited to be making progress on my book, and that it's going to come out early next year. So that's what I'm most excited about. I feel like I'm actually showing up for myself and following through, which is a big feeling of accomplishment and just confidence in myself. And that's probably the biggest thing that I'm proud of right now.
Are you sharing what the book is about or the title or anything, or is this a secret?
Yeah, I can share. I don't have a title for it yet. I haven't decided on one, but it's about the struggle of becoming a mompreneur and all of I want to say like the problems and the mindset barriers and solutions to overcome it.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll be all on the lookout for that book. And thank you so much for the work that you do in the lives of women and just being so vulnerable today and sharing kind of your journey. And again, we'll put all the links to things to connect with Lyss on social and her websites in the show notes. But I appreciate your time today. And for those of you that listen, we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks, Lyss.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap, friends, for this week's episode of the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. Thank you so much for listening and for following the show. It means so much to me. And listen, friend, sharing is caring. So if you loved this episode and thought of some fellow mompreneurs who could benefit, send them the link. Share this episode or take a screenshot and head on over to Instagram and share and tag me at Martine31Williams. We are connected on Instagram, right? It's where you will get all the fun behind the scenes of my life and business as a mompreneur. Until next time, know that I am believing in you always.